As you can imagine, using light to diagnose illnesses is not a new thing. This is perhaps what your doctor does or what your mother does when they look at you and say, perhaps your skin is pale today, or you look a tad bit plump red. This is already medical optics. There is a long history to looking at propagation of light through tissue. Let's understand a little bit more about it.
The importance of oxygen, in fact what oxygen is, was understood in 19th century. Just around the same time, importance of blood and getting blood to the different parts of the tissues to carry function, in particular for brain, was also understood. For example, somebody has built a balance, put a person lie on it and asked them to solve questions, and the balance tipped a little bit towards their head, indicating that the blood flow to the brain was indeed increasing during that period. In the 19th century, another interesting thing also happened. Just around the same time that they understood what oxygen is, how important it is, this blood flow, they also understood that the oxygenated species of hemoglobin and deoxygenated species of hemoglobin had different spectra. If you think about it now, this was obvious. You look at your arm, you see these bluish veins containing deoxygenated blood, you bleed and you have this super bright red substance coming out which changes colors over time. When you put all these things together, people said, let's use light to look into oxygen. Around the same time, medicine was also trying to become more quantitative, and people have started putting giant lumps on the heads of babies who had really big heads. These babies were known to collect fluids in their brains, something called hydrocephalus, and by looking whether a doctor can see through the head with light, they were starting to write commentaries about whether this is a method to diagnose hydrocephalus. As time moved on, people did other things. There's a seminal paper, for example, in 1929, showing the results of a trial using light to detect and diagnose cancer in the breast. What this person did is he held a big light wand in his hands. He asked the woman to sit on a rotating chair and turn them around while moving this wand, and in a dark room he inspected the breast and did tedious drawings of what he saw, and he was able to see tumors in the breast. Because he could not tell if this was a hematoma, the person had hit the chest somewhere and blood was pooling, or if this was a good cancer or a bad cancer. Around the same time, early 20th century, aviation became important. People started to go onto planes and the pilots were fainting because there wasn't enough oxygen. So somebody said, I know light goes through tissue. I know oxy and deoxyhemoglobin have different spectra. I think I can do physics with this thing, and started to put light through people's earlobes and looked at the pulsating signals to try to look at the arterial oxygenation and to try to figure out how to avoid the pilots from fainting. All these things kept developing over time, related to many applications. I told you the biggest barrier was the lack of physical knowledge. The physical knowledge came in details in 1970s, and people started to apply proper physical equations to these things and started to get quantitative signals. Another paper in late 1970s was a person who knew how to use light to detect things in tissues, but he had not appreciated, and I think nobody else had appreciated, that it really can go through bone easily. So this person held a stake with a bone on the window, put his son's hand behind the stake, and he saw that he can see the son's head through the bones in the stake. And he said, voila, I can get this thing into the brain of adult humans. And that opened the area of neuromonitoring. As time progressed, with better ways of delivering light, detecting light, better physics, better algorithms, we are now going back into that little gadget that I said we liked.
We hope you enjoyed this brief glimpse into the history of medical photonics. It is very important to understand the history because, of course, we stand on the shoulders of giants. And it would save us a lot of time if we already knew what others had done before us.